there's a lot of cunning and wisdom, and like, you know, you can't really tell what he's thinking and what he's doing. You know, Kirby, Stanley, it's like they set the stage for what he is, which you have to give them all the credit for that.
It was a concept, you know, when Christopher Priest was writing, they were written a little differently when Reginald Hudlin was writing. You know, if you go through the different, when Mayberry does it, it's a little different.
What I did love was Christopher Priest's take. You know, he really elevated the intelligence and the Dora Milaje, the female bodyguards, who can go wrong with kick-ass female bodyguards. All that stuff was great.
Every time he's asked that question, the first name out of his lips is Christopher Priest.
Really?
Yeah. I read Christopher Priest stuff, and then like he of course lists like Reginald Hudlin and, you know, Stan and Jack and all those, but literally every single time your name has been the first out of his lips.
That's really flattering to know.
We'll see him in Fantastic Four, we'll see him in Avengers, we'll see him here and there, but the Black Panther doesn't get his own series again until the coming of Marvel Knights. Really, Marvel Knights was an attempt by Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti to boost up some Marvel series that weren't doing too well. Quesada was a fan favorite artist and decided, or rather, approached if he could reinvigorate Daredevil. They also decided to do a line of this. So it was Daredevil, the Inhumans, the Punisher, and the Black Panther. To many people's surprise, the Black Panther was exceptional, and it was written by Christopher Priest.
You know, I actually turned in, I had breakfast with Joe Quesada this morning, and we were reminiscing over this stuff. And I turned in the first issue of Black Panther, and they rejected it because it was too straight, it was too by the numbers.
Oh yeah.
And Joe really had to kind of shake me out of formula, because we became so accustomed to, this is a long time ago, you know, but we had become so accustomed to a certain formula of doing superhero comics. And for better or for worse, because not everyone liked what we were doing, Joe wanted that Pulp Fiction in rewind storytelling style, and he wanted to take some chances and swing for the fences, and I'm glad that he did that.
Christopher Priest's run is what everyone is emulating now, and this was definitive enough that it really put the Black Panther at the center stage, though a lot of people didn't even realize it.
We also just wanted to make Black Panther a badass. We wanted him to be just a tough guy who doesn't take any crap from people. My main complaint about the Black Panther back in the 70s in some places, and with all due respect to writers who had come before me, is that he seemed to be this guy in the back of the line, in the back line of the Avengers team photo, you know, kind of waving like this. And we wanted Black Panther just to be, to confound expectations, both in terms of how he performs as a character, and then what that character represents, that he is a monarch, that he is a leader, a head of state, and that there are repercussions for his interaction with both criminals and with politicians in the United States.
The Black Panther is king, and he acts like a king, even in adventuring with other people. His primary and sole focus is Wakanda. Being king of Wakanda and making certain that that kingdom is protected. Remember, Wakanda has never been defeated, never been subjugated to any sort of foreign power. And T'Challa, it's revealed over that time, does not want that to happen on his watch at all. He has contingencies all the way up to dealing with beings like Galactus. The run is, well, the basic run is from issues 1 through 49, which ends T'Challa putting down a coup d'etat by the Man-Ape. There's always somebody trying to usurp his power, but he's always able to take care of these things before it becomes full out.
While I was working on it, I felt like this could be very well like the opus of my career. But at the same time, it was a little depressing because I'm like, oh God, but then that means it's downhill from here. There won't be anything else. I mean, I've had other great things that have happened, but I think the reason I'm so passionate about this is because not only did I get to work with my partner Sal on a cult favorite, because at the time the sales weren't the greatest, but I love the fact that Priest welcomed me to contribute more. That's why if you look at issues, I think 18 through 49 that we worked on, he didn't just credit us writer, penciler, inker. It was storyteller, because he was getting a lot of input from us. And me, being the fanboy that I am, I started like saying, what about this character? And what if we use this villain, or try this location? Or he used a lot of my suggested ideas. So that was an honor. And that's why I have to explain this, because it's like, wow, I was pushing him, for example, to bring Storm back. Because up until then, she'd only appeared meeting T'Challa in Marvel Team Up 100 back in the late 70s by Claremont and Byrne and McLeod. When they were kids, they met and fell in love. And I was telling Priest, he knew about the story, but I was like, the fans are looking for more developments on them. So we decided to just do it. And obviously with the next creative team later, they got the married. So, but people forget it. We're the ones that brought that into the foreground again, because it was just one of those things requested.
In addition, we get to see the Black Panther contend with the likes of the Submariner, Iron Fist, Doctor Doom, Magneto. It's a great storyline. It's very rich, very deep, and the characterization on the Black Panther is great, but also the reveal that the technology of Wakanda is something that has always been there that no one else ever decided to use. And so he was given what was known as a Kimoyo card. It looks like a credit card, but he was able to use this, and it's a volumetric type card as well. Use this for communication purposes. His suit was now made of a vibranium weave, where if you tried to shoot him with a bullet, it would never take, because the bullets would lose their inertia before they could actually hit him. He could walk up walls up to about 50 feet without any problem. The uses of technology, the slight changes, cosmetic changes in terms of his appearance, really made for an enjoyable read, and Priest's non-linear style also made it very entertaining and very interesting for those people who were in the know and were picking it up.
That all goes back to Stan, because Stan, besides being a friend and being one of my mentors, one of the people that trained me in the business, he wrote an outstanding, intuitive, interesting, multifaceted character. And I was just grateful to be able to go back to that source material.
It starts 1966 with Stan Lee, Jack Kirby. Really starts with Jack Kirby, who pretty much creates the image for the Black Panther and some of the background. He brings that image over to Stan Lee. Stan Lee looks at it and is like, no. And you have to remember what we first saw in that image. It's a yellow, gray, black, and red image. And Stan said no. So Kirby goes back to the well, comes up with what we know to be the Black Panther's outfit now, almost an entirely black outfit. So we see him first appear in Fantastic Four 52. He takes on the Fantastic Four, defeats all of them. The Fantastic Four, of course, free themselves. They understand that the Black Panther brought them there to test his abilities, and he also wanted to require their help in defeating a villain who had been plaguing him for some time, Claw, who would become his major villain over the years. And then he'll make guest appearances here, there, until he's finally brought on into the Avengers. Now later on, Christopher Priest would retcon this and say that the reason why the Black Panther joined the Avengers was to spy on them, so he could have an idea of what the Avengers were capable of and if they posed any threat to Wakanda.
Add in all the hard work that Don Mcgregor had done in coloring his world and expanding the world of Wakanda and his community around him, and add my own little 2 cents to it at the same time.
And then the second thing was this world, this separate place called Wakanda, which, Don McGregor and Billy Graham had done this just beautiful job.
Billy was beautiful.
He was incredible. He's done this beautiful job of sketching out this entirely different, almost plane of existence. And the opportunity to A, play with a character, with that sort of tension, at his heart right there, and B, venture off into this imaginary world where, just as a side note, all the people are black. Who could want more than that?
Black Panther is given he's given Storm billing in what was then called Jungle Action.
The line was expanding rapidly, and it was decided that Jungle Action would become a book that was 2/3 new material, and the back third would be reprint material. That they'd give me the books expecting them to die, saying, well, we gave you a chance, Don, and you blew it. But given books that they had just given up on, their only edict was with the Black Panther was that it had to be set in Wakanda. And I think that's the only guidance I was given. And then it also allows me to take a look not just at the culture and the society, but it gave me a map that I could play out with. And at the same time, try to take all of those iconic sequences that people associated with pulp jungle fiction or comic jungle fiction. But there was a lot of research long before I even wrote a page. I mean, that's why there's maps of Wakanda before I even wrote a single page in the book.
From Panther's Rage, we would hope that we get some more stories, and we do with the Panther versus the Ku Klux Klan. Now, this will be followed up with other stories that were written by Don Mcgregor in the form of Panther's Quest and Panther's Prey.
It's good to respect what's come before, but it doesn't mean you can't shake things up a little bit and try out new things. It's the only way you keep readers interested. Because I know Priest is trying to, he was an editor at Marvel in the 80s, and he's been a long-time writer, but he was very respectful. He didn't want to contradict anything that had been established in the past, because he had huge respect for what those creators did.
My approach with Panther, where I think it's really wrong for me to come along, and arrogant for me to come along and say that somebody else's writing didn't matter or that their work didn't exist. That's happened to me, and it feels terrible because you've invested a lot of time and effort, and then the next guy comes along and says, and, you know, it has the character walk out of the shower and go, "Oh, what a dream that was." So I tried to treat Don McGregor's work with a great deal of respect. We even brought back the Kirby Black Panther and tried to make the Kirby Black Panther work. So all points of view were valid.
Black Panther gets another solo series, actually his first solo series, and this is helmed up by none other than Jack Kirby. Well, he tried to do something different with it.
Respect the history, but he gave it a different angle, making him much more offensive. Not offensive like crude, I mean on the offense, for protecting. He was shown to be like incredibly paranoid in a way. If so many people want what your country has, it's like preparing. I love that aspect where he was preparing for every possible danger or threat. It's something that Batman started doing at DC Comics later. Priest was doing that with Black Panther already. He had protocols for Galactus, for a Skrull invasion, even though when the Skrull invasion happened with Hudlin's run, I'm not sure how that went. But I know with Priest, that was like a running joke. He's ready for any contingency, you know, for his nation to support themselves and stand on their own. And he did it in a way that was political without being boring or polarizing. It was just showing, okay, we have a king, we have royalty, we have a very sovereign nation, and he went there. He tried developing with what Don developed. And I think that's why we had our cult following. Editors at Marvel were reading Black Panther. They were praising it all the time. It was a guilty pleasure. It was fun. I think just Priest and us, we did a lot of groundbreaking stuff. The fact that he showed that T'Challa was one of the leading royalty, one of the leading leaders of a nation. To have him actually have meetings with the likes of Dr. Doom and Namor and Magneto and the Deviant Society in our Sturm und Drang story, which that was probably one of the most popular stories. Sturm und Drang, Enemy of the State 2 that we did towards the end. Sturm und Drang raised our sales a bit, so it kind of kept the life of the book going.
Actually, it was more to the point of people. I just wanted characters in the Marvel universe to they mistake him for a superhero because he's wearing, you know, what they consider to be a superhero costume. Mm-hmm. But that's more like a habit. It's a badge of rank that he's wearing. So they would treat him like a superhero, and he'd have to constantly remind him and confound that and say, you know, I'm a monarch, here's how things work.
The problem with the book was we were on death notice like every few months.
With Panther, every month we just thought we were going to get canceled. And so much so that my editor called me to harass me about turning in issue 13. And I had just assumed the book was canceled, issue 12, and I was off doing something else. And he's like, "You're late on issue 13. I said, "There's an issue 13?" You know, so I had no idea.
When we came in, it was like, the book may end with 18, and it's like maybe 20. No, we're good until 25. And that's how we were on the book the whole time. It's like you're always on edge, like you can't relax because you're just expecting like it's just gonna come to an end. And yet we somehow lasted till 49. So as disappointing as it was to not be able to do the 50th issue and continue, because I was trying to talk Priest into going to the Savage Land after that. We're trying to have, I mean, we did get Wolverine in on our Enemy of the State 2 storyline before that. But my original idea was like, yeah, Wolverine, Savage Land, dinosaurs. I mean, Mcgregor had introduced dinosaurs even in Wakanda. I mean, I wish early on we had a little better quality with coloring and printing. When the Marvel Knights line was starting all this for a year, they had the budget for quality, everything. The moment it came to issue 13, where Panther rejoined the Marvel Universe, it wasn't quite the same. It took us 2 years to get a colorist that we were excited about. It was around the time of, I think, with Seduction of the Innocent, like issue 31 through 33, and everything after that. That was VLM Studios, and later, from the studios, Jennifer Schlesinger. Never saw her work again after the series, but she brought something wonderful to our team. If you look at the silent issue where Iron Fist is fighting Black Panther, she's coloring every air bubble underwater, like with giving them all, each bubble like a round spherical shape. I wish we had that from the start. I think we did get a lot of new readers. I mean, for a while we jokingly called our title Black Panther Team Up, because if you look at the series run, there's like a guest star in almost every issue. And yes, it is an editorial a writer trick. It's a way to try to bring in some new readers. Oh, Deadpool's in there. I'm a Deadpool fan. The trick is, can we latch on to him enough to try a few more issues, of course. That's why we had to do that throughout. I don't think it's the only reason we survived 3 years, but the fact that the character is a public figure, of course there's going to be some globe-trotting, yes, and he's going to interact with the Marvel Universe. But otherwise, though, we had the great stories to work from, and we had some very good editors that gave into a lot of requests to try things out. They were very supportive. Sometimes they're willing to give you more of a chance when you're not a top-selling book. They figure, what do we got to lose? Try things out. In the 70s and 80s, a lot of times when you're on a low-selling book, creative teams got to flex their muscles more and try things a little more radical. Hard to do when you're on a very top-selling book. The editorial tends to micromanage a little bit to try to keep the quality up. But like I said, we had good supporting editors, didn't limit us very much at all. So I've had the best of memories with that.
It really helps that to have worked on both sides of the desk.
Yeah.
And once you understand the pressure that the freelancers are under, it's like, okay, I want you to come up with an original Spider-Man story that we've never seen again, and throw in Aunt May and Doc Ock, and you got to turn it in by Monday. And here's a gun to your head. Go, be creative. That's what writing comic books is like. It's an enormous amount of pressure, but you kind of have to learn balance and, in the name of God, stay ahead of the calendar and don't get behind it, because that's not a good place to be at all. Certainly what I learned is how to manage deadlines a little bit better, but I like to think that I'm a better writer now than I was then. We'll find out with work that comes subsequent to this. But, everything is just a learning experience. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And, from Power Man and Iron Fist, Spider-Man and Wolverine, that one shot back in the 80s, all the work that I did, that was all my training ground at Marvel, and having been trained by Stan, by Jim Shooter, by Dennis O'Neil, one of the greatest writers to ever write in this business. I've just been very lucky, very blessed, and you kind of learn and grow as you go.
I'm just so proud of what we got to accomplish. We didn't get to do everything we wanted to do because eventually we were bounced off the book. But we were on for 3 years. You try to find these days, or even back then, too many artists that are on a book that long, it's rare. It's not like the old days. When I started being a collector in the 70s, the 80s, back in the day, if you could keep a popular artist on the book, they'd let you do it for years, as long as the sales didn't drop. But not long into the later 90s, the publisher tended to rotate every 6 to 12 months.
So after 49 issues, the series was retooled, and T'Challa was no longer the lead in his own series. It was given to a new gentleman by the name of Casper Cole, and he became the Black Panther for several issues up until the end of the series. And the series, I believe, ended with issue 68. So that seminal run, issues 149, followed up by a few more, making Priest the longest writer of the Black Panther ever, but also the seminal writer as someone who really looked to evoke all of the things that had come from before. He definitely paid homage to Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Don McGregor, okay, the art, the characters. He didn't leave anything to the wayside. Everything was used. There was no fat. It was all lean, hard-running muscle. It's a great series and recently reprinted.
We did get to do a lot of things we wanted to do. We're the only creative team that had that length of time on the Black Panther series. If you look at other, if you look at other creators, they didn't last as long. Maybe a writer lasted as long as Priest, but not for the artists. Even if you look at consecutive issues, I think Sal Voluto and myself tied with Billy Graham with Jungle Action and maybe Kirby when he did the 70s Black Panther title. I think the tie was something like 11 issues in a row. But otherwise, we broke all records for consecutive issues, length of time, and the only creative team that I know of that worked on Panther's top 3 nemeses, Claw, Killmonger, and M'Baku the Man-Ape. No one else had done that. So I'm proud of those achievements, and I pretty much yell it out to the world like, yes, we did this, we did that, because it's true. But a lot of people don't realize that or talk about that, but we tried doing work after with a character, but there wasn't really any bites to reunite us. I know Priest is recently, I think it's the Black Panther Annual. He's returning to the character, as well as I think Don McGregor, and I think Reggie Hudlin, and I can't remember who else from the past is returning to that. Sal and I did the variant cover for Black Panther World of Wakanda number 6, the variant, which is actually this one. But that's been the only time that Marvel has, had us try to do something new, not counting the fact that I got to reproduce in English the afterword that was actually in this collection. It was originally in a Panini Comics collection. They had the license for the Marvel material, and they were the first ones actually to collect our Panther work in its entirety in what they called Marvel Monster Editions. They were like phone books. They got the whole thing, I think, in 3 volumes instead of Marvel's 4. But I had done an afterword upon their invitation, but it was in French, because it was for the French audience over in Europe. And Marvel was gracious enough to allow me to translate it back to the English and edit it a bit to make it better and use that. So that afterword right there explains a lot of specific information about behind-the-scenes stuff. And I'm just so pumped for the film to come out and see what they really, what they use from our time. Find out in 2 months.
And Hudlin's run is also the first run that really adds any sort of racial component to the Black Panther. Other writers had stood out. Even in Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's initial offering of the Black Panther, of course, we all know that he's an African king, and the Thing even makes fun of it when he's telling his story. Like, hey, this is some jungle tale that I could have watched on the news or something of that nature, or went to the movies. So there was some, places of that. But for the most part, the Black Panther's race is not that big of a deal. Hudlin decided that needed to be a big deal and introduced storylines. Storylines that were tapping into colonialism, storylines that would tap into systemic racism. However, Hudlin's run, thanks to the initial art of John Romita Jr., was not only well received, but very, very popular. The marriage of Black Panther to Storm in his pages as well did a good job of pushing T'Challa even further into the public eye. Finally, not only were people reading the Black Panther, people actually knew what was going on. This was a book to actually pay attention to. X-Men were making guest appearances. It was a crossover book when they did the whole Skrull invasion with Secret Invasion. and he really got some good mileage out of it.
And much like Star Trek, which had terribly low ratings when it was on the air, somehow this particular run of Black Panther gained in popularity in reruns. First, I owe a lot to Reginald, because Reginald publicized the heck out of the book when he took it over, and he really just brought in a whole new audience, and a lot of them started going back and reading the old issues as well, and you know, to the point where, man, I probably have more people here happy to see me than were actually buying the book when it was in print.
We do get one headed by Ta-Nehisi Coates, writer well known for his memoirs at the end of the day and for his commentary on race. So once again, we do have those things around the edges of the Black Panther. Coates' run is ironic in the fact that while civil strife in Wakanda is not unique, it is the first time in any storyline, and a storyline written by a Black author no less, where Wakanda is almost totally dissipated and T'Challa is an ineffectual king who is not looked upon with any sort of reverence by the people he has led this far. It's amazing to look at it, especially after what was done even in Don McGregor's run, which is probably where a lot of the civil strife gestates from. T'Challa is still king, he's still in control, he still knows what he's doing, and we have no doubt that he's going to be able to effectuate a positive outcome. We are about to culminate in the Black Panther film, which looks damn good. And if successful, will also be a first. This will be a film, okay, with an all-black cast for the most part, simply about the actions and adventures of this particular character, T'Challa the Black Panther, you know, African king, and that's it.
Like Black Panther, who was constructed from the ground up to be a fundamentally unique character who happens to be Black or happens to be African. But hopefully we're going to see a more resurgence of that.